Hello everyone, my name is Armando Perez-Carreno, and today we're talking about how to tailor an LMS to your particular company. An LMS, for those who don't know, is a learning management system. It is a system that you use to provide courses, basically. So if you provide training for your employees, for employee onboarding, for example, or if you sell courses, if you're a course creator or even a content creator, you want to sell courses, that you use an LMS for that as well. And then also, it's 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 a great tool because you can create a whole series of different experiences by using an LMS. And a lot of people don't think about it this way, but you could create a whole like masterclass type experience using an LMS, even though it's more of a video streaming service. You can use something like LearnDash to create something like that because it has the course lesson module structure. So what I'm going to explain today is what you can do differently than just out of the box installing an LMS system like LearnDash or Lifter, etc. So if you have a company and you are typically training your employees, every time someone new comes in, you have new hires, you want them to go through a certain process, you want them to know what the different procedures are in your company, you want them to know what the values are, you want them to understand everything, and you don't have time to train everyone. Well, ideally, you have a learning management system implemented in your company such that anyone who comes in can take those courses directly. And instead of just having a Vimeo account or a SharePoint with all the videos, if you have a learning management system, people can enroll. You can enroll people into your courses, basically, and even employees. And the difference here is that you can actually track what's going on. So you can see how they're progressing, which courses they've taken, which lessons they're having issues with. You can have quizzes so that they can show what they've been learning. And then you can have certificates as well, if that makes sense. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And also that you can get notifications if something's not going well with some people, etc. You can have them retake certain things if they didn't get a certain grade, etc. And this is just from the company perspective, if you are doing training, onboarding, etc. There's also the other side where maybe you're a course creator or an educator, right? You want to provide training. In the web space, web design space, web development, you might be an expert in what you do and you might want to teach people. Maybe there's a very specific niche that you work with in e-commerce or a very specific market. You want to show people how to create that sort of thing that you know how to create, you're already an expert on. Well, you can record a course on it and then use an LMS to sell that course to people. They can subscribe, you can have recurring billing if you want, or a one-time fee, and then they get access to the course and they can take those materials. So it's a great tool overall, and it's growing a lot. The industry is immense and just growing. It really blew up during the COVID, of course, because everyone was at home. So the e-learning blew up a lot, but it's still growing. And so it's very important to get into the space if you are a web developer, designer, freelancer, agency, etc. You might find that many clients are looking for this sort of approach. So how do you get a learning management system into your site if you're using WordPress? Well, if you're using WordPress, there's many different approaches. One of them is using LearnDash. We use that a lot. There's others like LifterLMS, and they're similar amongst themselves in the sense that it's basically a plugin that you put on WordPress that gives you added functionality. Could you do this on your own? Yeah, you could. You could just set up a custom post type for courses, one for lessons, one for topics, maybe one for quizzes, and you're off to the races, right? But having a full-featured LMS gives you the flexibility of already having everything created. Quiz creator, for example, which is a pain to just get it out of the blue, but you still have that freedom to enhance it, which is what really I want to talk about today. How you can take something that's packaged and tailor it to a company's brand, or if you're a business, how you can get someone to tailor it to your brand, which is very important. So I'm going to talk about A few issues that I typically see with the people that are using other systems or that maybe have implemented something like LearnDash, but that it wasn't properly implemented. We'll talk about that, and then we're going to talk about some examples of how you can think outside the box to get an experience that makes sense for your particular users. So again, for anyone who's just joining, we are talking about LMS, learning management systems for your company. If you are doing onboarding, if you need to do any sort of compliance training where you get your employees, they have to take some courses so that you fulfill compliance, then this conversation might be interesting to you. So let's dive into what issues I typically see when people are using a service that is not aligned with what they're trying to do, or when they're using something that wasn't properly implemented to align with their brand. The first is, I get a lot of clients coming in that need an LMS, a custom or bespoke LMS, but at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be built from scratch, as we're going to see today. But their issue is that they're using something like Teachable, and it sort of locks them into a very specific way of doing things. And if they want to get out of that or change that experience to align with their procedures, it's a little hard sometimes. And so many of them have hit a wall with services like these, or even some enterprise LMS offerings, because it just simply does not align with their specific needs. So I'm going to show you some examples of what I mean of actually getting out of the typical LMS experience while still getting all the added benefits of having an LMS, which is tracking student progress, right? So I'll explain something very basic. For example, if you just want to get a course out there, you're a course creator or you're an expert on something, and you just want to sell, right? You want to get someone, you want to build a community, etc. You don't need necessarily to build something like what we're talking about today. You might be better off using Skool, right? Skool. Skool is a great platform because there's a monthly fee, but you set that up, and then if you're taking payments on it, it's like they're just basically charging you the credit card transaction. They're not taking a big cut like Udemy or some of these other services will. And the platform is great. It includes a community, etc. So it's fantastic. So if you're just someone who just wants to get course content out there, whether it's free or paid, but you don't really care about tracking what people are doing and seeing what their progress is, etc., then that is a great option that didn't exist before. It just works and it's very nice. Now, if in your business's case, you actually need more information, you need to be able to hold your team's hands, to say it in a way, and see how they're progressing and see where they're having issues and have logs, of course, of what's happening, maybe for compliance reasons, etc., then having an LMS makes a little more sense. And the great thing is you can do it on WordPress. So let's talk about some of the issues that I've seen customers have when maybe they already had a platform. Maybe somebody installed LearnDash for them. Maybe they found LearnDash on a blog and they were like, this looks good. Let me just install it. That's okay, right? The problem that we have seen in those cases is that the UI out of the box isn't the most intuitive. So a lot of times their users will get lost. They'll find the course page, which might just show a bunch of lessons underneath, and there's no start lesson immediately, right? Depending on how you set it up, of course. But that's something I hear a lot. They come in and what they say is, we have this there, we have all the courses there, all the course content, all the lessons, all the quizzes, but our employees or our students just don't understand it, and they have a very hard time getting to actually use the platform, and that happens a lot. And so it really depends on who your audience is, who's taking these courses, and you have to see what they're used to and what they're expecting. Because if you're doing, for example, a website that has educational material, but more of like physical training or yoga, etc., and I'll show you an example in a moment, then the experience is a totally different one. You want to have a type of playlist, right, of those courses or lessons. You want to be able to enjoy and consume that content, maybe even from TV, not necessarily on on the computer. And so it's a whole different experience, even though you want the added features that the learning management system provides. And so there are times when you want to adjust that experience and just make it clear. A big one with LearnDash, in my opinion, is the course page itself is sort of a separate thing that sort of floats there. And then if you're using their no distractions mode, it got better than what they had before, where now it has a sidebar with all the lessons and the content, and you can just jump in to take the course. But that is very disconnected from the course page, in my opinion. And the course page is meant to be sort of a description or a teaser, or if you will, a landing page where people can enroll. But from all the clients that I've worked with, they're not using that as a sales page. The course page turns out to be really nothing because they're selling the course via WooCommerce, or they're selling it another way, or they're providing access based on a subscription, or they're providing access based on SSO with their third-party IDP. There's multiple ways people are getting enrolled, so they don't necessarily ever think of the course page as an important place. And so when students get there because they see the course in their available courses, it's a weird experience because you just get there, and then from there you still have to jump into the lesson, and then the UI changes completely. So for some customers, we found that it makes more sense to have the course page be actually the same sort of experience as the lesson pages, because that way you are in that sort of space. And I'll show you an example in a moment. So the whole point here is to show you what can be done if you start thinking outside the box. And this is not exclusive to LMS. So this could be any other thing that you're building on a WordPress site or any other site where you're getting additional tooling, maybe from an add-on, and you want to display it in a different way. It is possible. So if you're a business and somebody tells you, no, we cannot move, just think outside the box a little bit. Even if you are using a tool, maybe there's a tool out there that does exactly what you need, and it's at the right price, and it's very robust, and it has very good support, then maybe it's worth it to use the tool. But maybe the UI doesn't match what you want. Well, that shouldn't necessarily completely stop you. There are many instances where we've been working with clients and all the features are there for something they need, or maybe they already had it, but just the UI didn't make sense. And so we can always build custom views to display the data that this thing is generating. So just something to consider. If you have any questions, by the way, during this conversation, please just put them in the comments in YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, if you want, and they should appear here, and I'll be happy to answer them as well. And if you're a member of our Skool community, skool.com/learn, you'll also have access to a Zoom link that we have active right here. So you can ask your questions through there as well. All right, so I'm going to start sharing just to make it a little interesting. Here's something that has happened a lot. Let me share my screen. Okay, so My Peak Challenge, great website. It is a global movement dedicated to health, happiness, and giving back. That's what the teaser says, right? It is a great community, very large community. It has a social network within the site. It's built on WordPress, but it has social network within the site. It has learning management system, it has a ton of things within it. And as you can see, the experience, even though it has something like LearnDash behind the scenes, if you look here, you can see this. It's more of the experience that you would expect from a video platform, right? And you could have done this just with having custom post types, of course. But again, if you want to keep track of the progress and what people are doing to make the platform better, then maybe having an LMS actually makes sense. Also, it helps for your team if you have editors that are adding content, etc. It helps to have something that's structured as an LMS so that people can make those adjustments as they grow. So why is this different from a typical LMS? Well, if I go to my dashboard here and I actually go into a course, let me jump into maybe this one. Okay, so as you can see here, there is a video on the left, and then you have a bunch of information on the right. You have information about the coach, you've got the level, you've got a description of the course itself, and then you have a playlist on the right. And actually, this wasn't a good example because this course just only has one. So let's go into one that has more content. Maybe activate one. Yeah, has a lot of content. All right. So we're going to go in here. And as you can see, you have the playlist here on the side. So you can be watching the video and you can have a whole description of all the reps and exercise, etc. at the bottom. And then on the side, you see the ones that you've completed. You can click on any of them and just jump to it. And the experience is more of a video platform, not something like a typical LMS that you would expect. So you can create something like this, still using something like LearnDash under the hood, but you just use, if you're using blocks, for example, you create custom blocks that generate the video player and that generate the mark complete button and that generate the playlist, right? So you can create these custom blocks, just talking about the block system, but you could be using any page builder you want. And at the end of the day, as a developer, you're just grabbing the data that's already there, prepared by this tool, in this case, the LMS, and that data is exposed, so you can grab it and you can present it in another way, which makes more sense to that particular business. So that's where it really gets interesting. And I think that's where there's a real separation between someone who just creates websites or uses a page builder to just create websites to someone who tries to make their best to understand the business's needs and then adjusts for that. So you're not limited to what the page builder allows you to do, or you're not limited to what the plugin allows you to do, but instead you think in terms of what the company needs as a business, and then you connect those puzzle pieces together to create an experience that adds a lot of more value. So I'm going to jump into another very different example, which is more tailored towards the training and certification space. So if I go in here, so for example, for Comlink, they have a certification for certified flight coordinators, the people who are on the ground in the comm center dispatching emergency helicopters or emergency air service. And so very interesting market. And so in this community, it's very different because the experience for learning is more structured and should be managed in that way. People should see that structure because it's a certification and you have other constraints, but you still don't have to fit into the box that something like LearnDash gives you. You can provide a custom experience. So if I go to my profile, for example, in here, again, it's a custom page for the profile for the person when they're logged in. And we can see some items that are just like a regular course grid, what you would expect with having course completion, etc. That's what I was talking about, where it's important to have some of these features that LMS systems provide, because it'll tell you how much, even to the person, how much they've completed, when the last activity was, etc. So it is very convenient to have that, especially if you choose a good tool. So like I said, LearnDash is very good. The UI, my opinion, isn't the best, but you can make it however you want. Lifter, I've heard very, very good things. I haven't used it in particular, but I'm going to be trying it soon to see if it aligns more with some of the things we do. And there are others out there as well, which I can mention because I don't have any specific experience with. So if you look at, I'm going to show you two things here that are very interesting. If you look at this little bar up here, 20% complete, 4 out of 20 courses. This is a good example of something that is there in the database, but that is not shown perhaps the way you need it. Okay. Oh, and by the way, Rodrigo is saying I use Tutor LMS, which has recently added AI Studio. Yes, and a lot of these tools now have been adding their AI features, which is a good point, which allow you to, when you're adding course material, etc., it allows you to basically generate a course outline or actually generate the whole structure, the blueprint, and then work with that or help you with content, etc. Yesterday, I talked with a potential client. They're doing training, internal training, and they said they tried the AI feature of whatever tool they were using, and it didn't do what they were expecting. But it's getting there, right? The AI is getting much better depending on how you implement it in the different tools. It'll do well. Like again, last night I was working on an automation on make.com, and I used their AI tool just to see what if it generated exactly what I needed. And I told it what I needed, and it did that blueprint for the scenario. Close. I mean, it did it similar to what I would have done, but it chose the wrong modules. Maybe a search instead of a list item, etc. And so it gets funky sometimes, but it's getting close, and AI really helps us with getting things done faster. So if we look at this little bar here, this is a very interesting one because for their certification, people have to take 20 courses. All right. And it's good for the user to see where they are in that progress. And so while there is a progress bar in a tool like LearnDash that gives you the progress for that particular course that you're taking, considering its lessons, topics, quizzes, etc., there isn't one at a category level. So what we did here is we create a custom block, this one here, that will, when you place it, you tell it which category you want it to display. And so you can say, oh, I want the certification category, because they might have tens of or hundreds of products, right? So what this block will do is, given a category, it will grab all the courses within that category and generate this bar and say what the percentage of completion is for that person for all the courses within that category. So it's very practical because you can use it to reference different sections of your learning journey, if you will. So that's one thing, right? Or this one, the view certificate, a little badge thing up here. So that's another one. It's not a thing that the tool does, but you can create a custom block that checks, oh, did this person do these items, did complete these particular items? And if so, they should have this badge, which is just a thing that we have based on the featured image. And then if so, then that means they already have a certificate. So why not show it to them here, and they can click and view their actual certificate. So there's many things you could do where you're making these custom blocks, custom widgets to display information in a different way to make it align with your brand. So we saw we can have something like this, totally different experience, still using something like LearnDash behind the hood, and then something like this, where it's more of a structured learning experience, right? But again, it's a custom UI in front of it, but you're still in WordPress. You're just making these blocks that do this particular thing. And also it has the benefit that if you're using blocks, then you can edit it visually later on if you build them as blocks. And so it's a great way to use what's out there and that maybe other people that you're hiring already understand how to use in the backend, especially editors, for example, but at the same time provide a nicer or better experience in the front end. So I was talking about the course. And so here, for example, if I go to aviation weather, this is the course page and I'm already here in this experience. So from here, I can jump into a lesson or a quiz or a topic. But if I'm at the course level, if I clicked from here to one of the courses, it takes me here. So I'm already in this experience, which is something that I don't see in the regular experience. And so this has helped a lot of our clients do something like this because it doesn't have two completely different experiences, like the course page being its own thing and then having the no distractions experience over here, which is completely different. So there's a lot of little tweaks that you can do. Maybe some people like having the certificate here as well. Maybe they want the completion down here. Maybe they want the previous and next buttons. Like there's another thing we talked about yesterday as well with this other client. They had the exact same issue as one of our existing clients, which was if you use something like LearnDash, sometimes since you can have courses, lessons, topics, quizzes, etc., when you're in a lesson, for example, the button that says next, instead of just saying next, which would take you to the next thing, whatever it is, it says next lesson. But then you go to the next one and maybe it says next topic. And then you click on the next one and maybe it says next quiz. But it's a very confusing experience for the user because they don't really care that they're going to a quiz or a lesson, etc. They probably just want to continue. So having that, the way it's labeled, might be very confusing depending on what that market is. And so we've had requests to change that many times. And so there's ways to do it. And this does involve code in some instances, depending on how the platform is built, but you can get it to just say next and previous to make it a lot simpler. So there's ways to, and again, if you're a freelancer or an agency or someone who's in this space, and a client reaches out to you and they're saying, well, I have this learning management system and we want to make it look better. Don't get overwhelmed. Don't just mark it off as something that, oh no, let's just build something else, or let's build something from scratch. Not necessarily. We've gotten clients that come in with an LMS already installed with thousands of lessons within courses and topics, and it would be a nightmare to recreate everything. But they already have everything in the database, and they're already using a tool that's robust. So why don't we just skin it, right? Why don't we change the interface? And that's what we've done with a lot of these. We come in, we duplicate the site, and then we create another theme for it, and then we create custom blocks for it, and we get this experience looking exactly as they need it, because the database wasn't bad. The course structure was okay. It was just that the way the UI is built in that specific LMS might be a little clunky, but that's not stopping you from having or providing an excellent experience for your users. You can simply display it in a different way. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's one of the best things about WordPress, that you have this flexibility of keeping the model, right? All the database, and you have custom post types, and you have taxonomies, and you have the whole CMS, an experience for people to modify things in the back end. But then in the front end, you can display them any way you want. So you're not limited. You could even take it further and create a headless WordPress if you wanted to, which means you build a whole React-based experience, for example, and you don't need to use the block editor or anything like that if you don't want to. There's many ways to do this. I mean, if you're trying to compare with other platforms, like if you're doing e-commerce and you go and you see what Shopify Plus is doing, yeah, Shopify Plus is great, but they're just using the backend, and then the front end has to be a custom built interface, right? So you could do the same thing here if that's what your company needs. But in most cases, you'll probably be fine by using what WordPress has, either their block-based system, which works great, needs a little tweaks. It's coming along great, but it's growing. Or you could use something like Bricks. We were talking about Kevin Geary a couple of days ago, and there are page builders that are actually very good. I hear Bricks is fantastic. So if you want to use something like that, that's fine too. You can use that, use the data that you already have in the system to make it better. So you don't have to always recreate or redesign completely the structure of the site. Maybe it's just the front end that you're adjusting. So I wanted to share that little bit there. And the other thing I wanted to show, which also came in as one of the questions I was talking with a client yesterday, is can you do more? Can you do integrations with third-party tools while keeping what you're doing here? I'll give you an example. So if we go to this course, there is a video, very straightforward. It's a video coming from Vimeo. Okay. Sometimes you use YouTube or Wistia or whatever. I recommend if you have a closed platform, use Vimeo or Wistia or anything like that, because you'll have more control on where it can be embedded, and you'll have access to messaging between the platforms, etc. I'll explain what I mean in a second, but that is a question that comes up often. Do I use Vimeo or do I use YouTube? Use Vimeo if you can, or Wistia. It's fantastic too, or even Loom sometimes. But Vimeo works great in this case for most scenarios, because it has the player, which you can theme. As you can see, we have the little logo here on the right, but it also has an API, a front-end API, and the back-end one too, but we'll get into that. But the front-end API is great because it allows you to get messaging from the player, which means you can do things like force completion of the video. So for this example, there's a very nice little block that we built that displays the video, and it won't let you proceed until you watch it, which tools like LearnDash already do. However, people can always just move forward. unless you disable the play bar. But then if you disable the play bar, then you don't have the play button. And it's just inconvenient to disable the play bar or the timeline altogether, in my opinion, because that's the quickest hack, right? You just get rid of the tracking bar. Yeah, you can, but then what if they genuinely want to go back and then go forward again? So what we did was create a little custom block that will lock people from going any further than they've ever gone. So if I'm here and I try to go through 3 minutes, it won't let me. However, if I'm watching and I've watched 10 minutes, but then I want to go back, I can. And if I'm going to go forward, I can go back up to those 10 minutes that I've already watched. And so it's great because it keeps them engaged. They have to actually watch it to be able to proceed to the next step, but it still allows them that flexibility of moving back and forth, which is something that you do want. So it's sort of the best of both worlds, in my opinion. And there's many more things that you could do, of course. Remember, Vimeo, when you upload a video, it gives you an automated transcript. So you have that full transcript. So if you wanted to, you could actually have that linked to be displayed within the content as it's playing, right? You can have that rolling with timestamps and all that good stuff. So you can do a lot of little things with tools like Vimeo. And so the other thing you can do is have it where it will hide or show elements on the screen based on what is happening in the player. Because of that messaging API, you can receive messages from the video player and then do something with that. So you can create a more enhanced experience, if you will, just directly by interfacing with these tools. And this applies to videos, video players. You could do, there's some other clients that have like an external quiz service. So LearnDash, for example, has quizzes. They're okay for basic quizzes. You'll do fine. The UI, again, building it isn't the best. Using them, they're fine. But building them, it's a little clunky, but it works. But if you want to do more complex quizzes with a lot of crazy conditions and things like that, then they won't cut it. But there are third-party tools, other websites even, like Exam Builder, or there's some like that have everything you can imagine that a quiz or examination should be able to have. It's very advanced stuff, very nice, but it's another platform. So can you integrate it in what you're doing? Yeah, of course you can. So you can have it where in the lesson, when you're building your lesson, maybe you have an identifier of whatever quiz you have over there. And so it'll show it to the user embedded on the page. And again, using messaging between the iframe and whatever you're using, you can have it tell LearnDash that the person did actually complete the quiz or that they got this particular grade and they can proceed if they got this grade or not, etc. So you can do a lot of things and you don't have to be constrained to what the platform does. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Just make it clear that if you're building an LMS for your company, you're going to do training, onboarding for employees, or you're going to be selling courses or certifications or anything online, having an LMS is great, but don't think that you are stuck to what the particular platform does. So as long as you're using something like WordPress, you have full flexibility to create any experience that you want. Just choose an underlying tool that makes sense based on the features. So if LearnDash works for you or Lifter works for you, great, or Tutor or Talent or whatever, it's okay. If it does what you need it to, great. Now, can you make it look how you want it to? Yes, you can if you're a developer, designer, or you can get someone to do it. I mean, we could do it for you, of course, as well. So that's what we're talking about today. I hope this helped you in some way, just learn about what is possible. So if you are in the business of training, if you're selling courses, if you are providing certifications, etc., you can create something like this. You can reach out to us via Twitter if you want, LinkedIn, and or if you're learning about this stuff, if you want to see how to create these sorts of platforms, then join our community, skool.com, skool.com/learn. You can join our WordPress community there, and we have some courses as well where you can learn. It's free, by the way. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and I'll see you in the next one.